no luck.
Sounds good.
Okay, I've just handed my phone to Mr. Lau and see if he can get it to send.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Alyssa's fault as usual. I have no idea what goes on here.
All rise. Hoarding Municipal Court is now in session with the Honorable Judge Cronin.
You can be seated, thank you. Okay, we are on the record. I can see that we have Ms. Lecomte available, and Ms. Lecomte, if you'll go ahead and unmute your microphone and enable your video.
Okay, I should be unmuted and my video is on.
Yes, I can see you well and hear you well, and hopefully you can hear us and see us well.
Okay,
So I'm just taking a quick look at our last court date when I was here with everybody here in the courtroom.
wait a minute, Mike.
It was March 17th, and on that date, we had ongoing proceedings related to the show cause issue that had arisen in this case. And on that date, I found the defendant was still not in compliance. I imposed some consequences that day for the failure to comply with the court's original sentencing order. And I'm going to just read from that document what I wrote on March 17th. Court finds defendant still not in compliance, imposes $2,150 fine, suspends $1,650 of the fine, imposes 64 hours of community service, suspends 48 hours of community service, and then stays the execution of both the community service and the fine until the next court date, which would be April 8th. If all loose property removed, court will vacate fine and community service owed. So my intention was to try to give Ms. Lecomte a little bit more time at that point, even though we were on the date of March 17th, had been the original date to come into full compliance. I issued the fines and penalties, but I stayed them in the hope that by today's date that Ms. Lecomte would be in full compliance with the original sentencing order, which was to have all loose property removed, and that was supposed to be have occurred by January 8th. So we're now three full months from the date of expected full compliance, and now we're here for this hearing. And it's basically a hearing for the court to get additional evidence from both sides with respect to the issue of whether all loose property has been removed from the residence. And so I'll turn first to Mr. Reynolds. I can let the parties know I do see that there have been photographs that have been uploaded from both defense and from the prosecution.
Oh boy.
I have glanced at a few of those photos, but have not looked at any of them in any detail. I just glanced at them to see what was there, and there's certainly photographs from both sides. So I will turn to Mr. Reynolds. We've already had the hearing. The issue really for today is whether the court should impose those penalties that were previously suspended or lift the stay that had been granted. And so if you would like to make any argument with respect to that, if you want to call witnesses in support of any arguments that you want to make, obviously there's some photographs that would need somebody to identify what those photographs are, who took those photographs, when they were taken. So we may need a compliance hearing today if that's going to be the case.
So, Your Honor, thank you. So we have Officer Benjamin Cochran from City Code Enforcement, and I think it does make sense for the court to hear from Officer Cochran.
All right, Officer Cochran, if you'll come forward.
Judge, excuse me, Judge, I would like to call a witness as well.
Yeah, you'll be given the opportunity. The prosecution always has to go first. They've got the burden of proof in every case. Even when we're at this stage, they have to prove that you've failed to comply with my last order, and so they'll present Officer Cochran. I'll hear his testimony. You're going to have a chance to ask Officer Cochran questions if you want to. So you'll have that opportunity. And then when Mr. Reynolds is done presenting any witnesses or evidence he wants me to consider, then you'll have the same opportunity to present evidence. And if you want to call a witness to identify any photographs, or if you're the person that took the photographs, then you would have to testify about those photographs. So we'll do it in that way. It's a relatively formal process so that we have a good record and everybody has the opportunity to be heard. But Officer, I think we'll have you sit there. Mr. Reynolds has figured that out again. The best place for everybody to be able to see and hear you is at that location right there. But if you'll raise your right hand for me. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you. Go ahead and have a seat, Officer. And whenever you're ready, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Your Honor. And is it okay if I just sit because I'm going to be on my computer doing sharing screen?
Perfectly fine.
Thank you.
And I'll just let the parties know that we do have our probation officer here who can share her screen if necessary. So if you need to have the screen shared of photographs that you might want me to be able to look at and for others to look at them, Ms. LeCompte, just let us know and we'll have our probation officer assist with that.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Cochran, can you please state your full name and spell your last?
Yeah, my name is Benjamin Cochran, Cochran.
And Officer Cochran, where do you work?
I work for the Boulder Police Department's Code Enforcement Unit.
What are some of your duties with Boulder Police Code Enforcement?
Our duties involve enforcement of the municipal code, mostly related to property maintenance standards, such as trash, tall weeds, graffiti, typically things that are related to property maintenance.
Thank you. And are you familiar with the address of 290 Pawnee?
I am.
How is it that you're familiar with that address?
We have received complaints and requests for service about the property multiple times, not just in the recent past, but in years past as well. I've issued notices of violation there. I've also issued a summons to Mrs. LeCompte within the last month. So I'm fairly familiar with the property.
And Officer Cochran, when is the last time you were at 290 Pawnee?
The last time I was there was this morning.
And what were you doing there?
I was there to take photos to document the progress that had been made in removing the items from the exterior of the property by Ms. LeCompte.
And I'm going to share my screen. You'll see something pop up on the big screen here. I'm going to show you some photographs, and then we'll talk about that. Officer Cochran. All right, do you recognize this photograph?
I do.
How is it that you recognize it?
That was a photo that I took this morning.
And what is it of?
This is a photo of the north yard of the property at 290 Pawnee along the Sioux Drive frontage of the property.
Does it appear to be a fair and accurate representation of the property from this morning?
Yes.
This time I'd move to admit labeled in full court as People's Exhibit 1 for the 4/8/25 show cause hearing.
Any objection to Exhibit 1, Ms. LeCompte?
I would prefer to show my photograph of the same scene, but I have no objection to this one.
Okay, Exhibit 1 will be admitted. And I'm gonna mute Mr. Lau's microphone. I did it a moment ago, but I want to do it again. I just want to let Mr. Lau know. I'm just getting background noise. It's hard to hear when there's someone's.
I mean, already she starts off with, I would prefer to show mine. Yeah, okay. That's why you have a case. But I don't think the problem is a matter of lighting or the angle. I just really don't. But we'll see. We'll see.
Microphone there. So great. Okay. So Exhibit 1 will be admitted. You may continue, Mr.
Thank
Reynolds.
you. Officer Cochran, I'm going to zoom in here so that just to make the photograph larger. You can see. Are you able to see my cursor on the screen?
Yes.
This large object that I am circling, what does that appear to be?
As best I can tell, it appears to be some kind of trailer with objects on top of it that appear to be made out of some kind of metal.
And is that, would you consider that to be a loose item on the property?
Yes.
Thanks
I
for
would.
that description.
Then I'm gonna scroll over here as well. And then these items here, kind of that are behind and to our right of the previously identified trailer, what is that? What do these objects appear to be?
Directly behind the trailer, it appears that there's a pile of wood or lumber of some kind, possibly firewood. And then a little further to the right of that, it appears to be another type of wood, maybe 2x4s or some other kind of lumber material.
And then this object here, if you can still see my cursor, it starts out straight and possibly metallic and then ends with this green billowy object. Can you tell us what that appears to be to you?
It would appear to be some kind of umbrella, I believe.
Thank you. I'm gonna show you a different picture. Officer Cochran, do you recognize this picture?
Yes, I do.
And do you recognize it for the same reasons as the previous picture?
Yes.
I'd move to admit People's Exhibit 2 for this show cause hearing.
Ms. LeCompte, any objection to Exhibit 2?
Yes, I do.
What's the objection?
The objection is that these are the same pictures that were shown before and were seen to be okay a long time ago. And the green hose there and the other one are the hoses that come from the sump pumps that are in my crawl space. And they are used to evacuate water because I live in a very high water table.
Okay, so it's not a legal objection, it's just you have an objection to them being used to prove a violation.
Yes, because they are not junk.
I'm
Or trash.
I'll admit Exhibit 2. We'll have some discussion later as to whether or not this constitutes loose property that constitutes a violation. And
What
both
the
sides
hell
will be
is
given
that?
adequate opportunity to make argument. But Exhibit 2 will be admitted.
Officer Cochran, do you know what what these items are that are beneath the windows depicted in People's Exhibit 2?
As far as the green item, it does appear to be some kind of hose. The white items, I believe they may be some kind of metal piping of some kind.
And then this item over here to the right of the tree?
From what I can tell, I believe it is some kind of generator.
Thank you. I'm going to show you a different picture. This is People's Exhibit 3. And then, Officer Cochran, do you recognize this picture?
I do.
And what is it of?
This is a photo of a trailer parked on the Sioux Drive, which is on the north side of the property at 290 Pawnee. The trailer has multiple large items stored on it.
And did you take this picture?
I did.
Do you recognize it for the same reasons you recognize the other two pictures?
Yes.
I move to admit People's Exhibit 3 into evidence.
Ms. LeCompte, any objection to Exhibit 3?
I have an objection to it. I would like to substitute my own photographs for it later.
Okay, we'll give you a chance to admit your photographs as well. Exhibit 3 will be admitted for the purposes of the hearing.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Cochran, I'm going to show you another photo, and we have a total of 6 of these, so we're on the 4th one. All right, Officer Cochran, do you recognize this picture?
Yes, I do.
Do you recognize it for the same reasons as the previous 3 pictures?
Yes.
I move to admit Exhibit 4.
Ms. LeCompte, any objection to Exhibit 4 being admitted?
Again, I prefer to show you mine, but you may have it because clearly there, Mr. Reynolds is trying to make my whole situation look as bad as possible. So go right ahead.
All right, Exhibit 4 will be admitted for the purposes of the hearing.
I'm gonna zoom in here. Officer Cochran, this large green object here, what is that?
I believe from visiting the property, I believe it's some kind of juniper bush.
And then to the left of the juniper bush, what I'm circling here, what are these objects appear to be?
I believe they're boxes or storage containers that are in the photo on the front patio of the property of 290 Pawnee.
I'm going to share I'm going to show you another photograph here. We're on the second to last. Officer Cochran, do you recognize this image?
Yes,
And do you recognize it as the same reasons you recognize the previous 4 images?
yes.
I would move to admit People's Exhibit 5.
Ms. LeCompte, any objection to People's Exhibit 5?
No,
All right, Exhibit 5 will be admitted.
Officer Cochran, if you can see my cursor, this large white appliance-looking object, do you know what that is?
I believe that is a refrigerator.
And then
That might have been leading.
how about this object here? I don't know if you can see you can see my cursor on the screen. What is this black object that's highlighted by the
This large appliance item.
sun?
It appears to be a chair of some kind, perhaps an office chair.
And what other types of words would you use to categorize the items that I'm kind of circling in People's Exhibit 5?
I think a kind of general term would be if it were property that I was looking at, personally, I would classify it as junk. But it appears to be just a sort of random collection of kind of household items is how I would describe it.
All right, I'm going to show you, okay. And then having been out there, I am circling the large green object on the left side of People's Exhibit 5. Is this the same juniper bush that was in People's Exhibit 4 that was kind of near the porch?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now I'm going to show you the last picture that we have today. Do you recognize this picture?
Yes,
Do you recognize it for the same reasons you recognize the previous 5 pictures?
yes.
I move to admit People's Exhibit 6 into evidence.
Ms. LeCompte, any objection to People's Exhibit 6?
no,
All right, Exhibit 6 will be admitted.
Officer Cochran, I'm zooming in again. I am using my cursor to circle the objects that are to the right and essentially to the right and kind of behind the large white truck. How would you characterize the objects that I am circling here?
I would categorize them certainly as loose objects. It seems to be just kind of haphazardly stored, just kind of piled behind the trailer that is in the photo. I can't tell specifically what the items are, but it does look to be just a large kind of collection of various items.
And what time were you out there this morning?
I believe I was out there at approximately 9:30. I believe it's the rough time frame that I was there.
I don't have any other, well, I actually do have another photograph that I would like to share. Given the quick nature of this hearing, I haven't provided to Ms. LeCompte, so I would beg the court's, well, I can show everybody now the photograph, but I have not provided it to Ms. LeCompte, and I will certainly do it after this hearing. Let's see. I'm not sure what's here.
I could not really.
Why don't we do this? Let's take a pause and can you email her that right now before it comes up on the screen so that she can look at it and make an objection before I see it?
I couldn't understand what Mr. Reynolds was saying.
Mr. Reynolds is saying that he's got one other photograph that he would like to share with the court, but he has not yet shown it to you. So I've asked him to email it to you before I even rule on its admissibility and before he puts it on the screen for me to see. That way, if you have an objection to this photograph, you can make that objection before it comes up on my screen.
Okay, I will need to get my phone back from Mr. Lau because won't be able to look at it while I'm looking at you on my computer.
I get you. I get you. Okay. So we'll give Mr. Reynolds a moment to email it to you. It may take a minute.
That I gave Ms. Milligan, I'm assuming bacterial vaginosis.
It'll be incoming here in just a moment.
You may need to speak a little louder. I'm not sure she could hear you.
It'll be, it should be incoming now, Ms. LeCompte.
And excuse me if I'm a Matlock fan.
And have you provided that is it in full court yet?
It is not, Your Honor. I apologize. We have uploaded 6 of 7 photos that we would intend to use.
If you could upload that and mark it as Exhibit 7, I won't look at it, but it can be there for the record. And if I decide that I'm not going to consider it, then I can at least note that Exhibit 7 has been offered and not admitted. And if I do admit it, then I'll be able to look at it.
I have a big objection to this photograph.
Yeah, well, let's hold on for a moment. So at least you've seen it. So I wanted you to have the opportunity to see it before I saw it. And what Mr. Reynolds is doing right now is uploading it, and then he's going to move for its admission, and then you can render your objection, and we'll see what.
Any objection?
So I
All objections.
asked my paralegal to put it in full court, and she can do that, but I can show everybody the photo right now.
Let's lay some foundation for it, if you will, Mr. Reynolds.
Absolutely.
Do you have a witness? Is this witness going to be able to identify? So if you can show it to him, and then he can tell you if it's what it's a photograph of. And feel free to get up if you need to, either one of you.
Well,
I come in here.
okay. Officer Cochran, I am showing you a photograph. Do you recognize this photograph?
Yes, I do.
How is it that you recognize it?
This is a photo that I took myself.
That yard.
When did you take this photograph?
This photo was taken on the morning of April 7th, 2025.
So is that yesterday?
Yes.
And what does it depict the property of Matty Bunny?
Yes, it does.
Where was this photograph taken from?
This photo was taken from the rear yard of one of the adjacent properties to 290 Pawnee on the Sioux Drive side of the property.
So were you on somebody's private residence when you took this photo?
Yes, I was.
How is it that you got access to the private residence?
I was given access to this property after receiving a request for service to inspect the property at 290 Pawnee, where it was reported to us that the rear yard of 290 Pawnee was now being used to store a large quantity of various items. The property owner let us know that we were able to enter onto their property to take photos if necessary.
Just to be clear, when you say you were granted access to this private residence, who was it that gave you access?
It was the owner of the property, one of the co-owners of the property.
Okay, and so you had a legal right to be there?
Yes.
I would move. I mean, I could show the court now. We're not in a jury trial, but I could show the court the photograph now and move for its admission.
Before you do, and I understand I probably could review it and still not consider it as evidence, but I want to hear Ms. LeCompte's objection to Exhibit 7. Go ahead, Ms. LeCompte, what's your objection?
My objection is that the order that we have had is to clear out everything that is visible from the street on the around my house. And that is what we have done. We have cleaned out our garage, and much of the stuff that is in the backyard is stuff that we are going through and getting rid of. But
Which is
that
number
is
one.
not part,
Wrong.
absolutely not part of our original order, which we have worked hard, as you will see in the photographs that I have submitted, to be fully compliant today. And introducing this is a bait and switch, or an additional part of an addition to the charges that I have been faced with, and not part of the original complaint at all. And that's why I'm seriously objecting to this.
Okay, I'm going to admit Exhibit 7. We can still have the argument as to what the court's order from
Seriously
back in
objecting.
October, on October 8th, what the court's sentencing
Not
order
kidding.
entailed and what constitutes compliance and what the constitutes not compliance. That can still be subject to a discussion, but the Exhibit 7 will be admitted. So you can share it now if you choose to, Mr. Reynolds.
Prepare the JDAMs.
I'm now displaying Exhibit 7. Officer Cochran, what does Exhibit 7 depict?
This is a photo of the rear yard of 290 Pawnee, which is on the east side of the property.
And in the middle of the screen, kind of going from left to right horizontally, in between the fence and the house, how do you characterize what we're looking at?
I would categorize it as a large quantity of various items, including metal storage racks. I believe when I took the photo, there were car parts in the stacks, appliances, bicycle parts, just kind of a various collection of, I would say primarily metal or plastic objects.
And is this vantage point? Well, the objects that are depicted in this image, in between the fence and the house, the various objects that you've described, can you see that from if you're like on the sidewalk at Sioux Drive?
From the sidewalk on Sioux Drive, you would not be able to see it. The fence for the property is approximately 6 feet tall, so you wouldn't be able to see it from the sidewalk on Sioux Drive.
What about the sidewalk from Pawnee Drive?
I believe a portion of it would be partially visible in front of the property just to the south of 290 Pawnee, only because there's only a chain link fence and some very small kind of bushes between 290 Pawnee and the property to the south. So it may be somewhat visible from the Pawnee Drive side.
And so the only way that you would ever have the ability to kind of observe this would be, and please correct me if this is not an accurate statement, would be if the homeowner granted you access to their property to take a picture like this.
Correct. For this specific vantage point, yes, but I believe some of the neighboring properties, you'd also be able to observe it if they were to grant an officer permission onto their property to view it.
Those are all the questions that I have for Officer Cochran.
Let me just ask a clarifying question so that I can understand. So you took this photograph from someone's private residence.
Correct.
The Sioux Drive side of the property is to the north.
Correct.
Are you saying from the Sioux Drive side, if you were walking on a sidewalk without going on to the private property, you would not be able to see this?
Correct. Yeah, the Sioux Drive side has a privacy fence on the north side.
If you're on the Pawnee side, which is the street that basically runs north and south, and you're basically to the west of the house, where the driveway is. If you're on the sidewalk or not on someone's private property, would you be able to see this?
You would have I believe it would be a slightly obstructed view, but there's no fence other than a small chain link fence. So I believe you would be able to see a portion of
the portion that would be furthest to the south.
Right.
Basically to the east of where that driveway would be.
Correct. Correct. So I'm sorry, can you specify the?
Well, if you got the driveway in the front of the house, it runs along.
Yes.
Pawnee.
So if you were to be,
if you walked to the driveway and you walked past that driveway to the east backyard, from that location, if you were on the sidewalk there, that's where you might be able to see some of this.
Yes, Judge.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify for my understanding and for Ms. LeCompte's understanding of your testimony. Okay. Any other questions for Officer Cochran, Mr. Reynolds?
No, Your Honor.
All right. So Ms. LeCompte, it's now your opportunity to ask any questions, if you have any, for Officer Cochran. You're not required to, but if you have questions for him, keep in mind it's just questions. If you have comments about what he's provided, you'll have the opportunity to testify. But just now, if you have any questions for him.
No.
Okay. Then you can step down. You can remain in the courtroom, Officer Cochran. Any other evidence that the city would like to provide?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
All right, so the city is rested now, Ms. LeCompte. Now, just as the prosecutor did, you have the opportunity to present evidence that you'd like me to consider. You have submitted defendants, and we've labeled your exhibits, the 4 photographs, exhibits A, B, C, and D. Those have not yet been admitted, so someone would have to testify as to what those exhibits represent. That can be you or someone else, but it has to be testimony that identifies them, just in the way that Officer Cochran said when he took his photographs, when he took them, what they represent, so they could be admitted, unless Mr. Reynolds simply wants to stipulate to their admission, and that's perfectly up to him. But those are the 4 exhibits that have not yet been offered or admitted. Mr. Reynolds, any position with respect to those exhibits?
I'm not gonna object to their admission, but I would like the opportunity to cross-examine.
So you want a foundation to be laid?
Yes,
But-
yes, I would.
Okay, so, and that's some legal terminology. So, Ms. LeCompte, someone's going to have to at least identify these exhibits, who's sworn under oath to identify these photographs. That can be you or someone else, and you're pointing to yourself, and that's perfectly fine. So I'm going to swear you in. Do you want to raise your right hand for me? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. You can start by identifying the exhibits if that's what you'd like to do. Any testimony that you want to give is fine. Just keep in mind that Mr. Reynolds has the opportunity to cross-examine you. I want to let you know before you start your testimony, you do have the right to remain silent. So even though you've said you want to testify and I've sworn you in, if after hearing this advisement you don't want to testify, that's fine. But just understand that you have the absolute right to remain silent. In any criminal proceeding, you have the right to remain silent. No one can force you to make any statements or to testify. The decision of whether to testify has to be made by you and you alone. It cannot be the result of any pressure or influence or coercion from any other person. And it appears that you've decided that you'd like to testify. Is that correct?
Yes, I do.
We may have 2 microphones on. Oh, let's mute that one from Mr. Laus. I think it picks up and then it gives us feedback. So we're going to mute that microphone. And do you understand that Mr. Reynolds has the right to ask you questions once you've testified?
Yes,
And if you had been convicted of a felony, he could disclose that felony conviction to me?
I'm sorry, what?
If you've been convicted of a felony, he would have the right to disclose that felony conviction to me. You understand that?
Yes, but I don't
No.
understand what that means.
It just means that he could tell me, hey, Judge, this person's been convicted of a felony. She's not very credible as a witness. You shouldn't believe her.
I've never been convicted of any felony or
So it's
misdemeanor.
not likely to come up. All right.
Oh my
There's a
God.
law, there's a case in Colorado, a Supreme Court case that requires that I tell you about all these things before I take your testimony. And I wanted to make sure I did that today. But knowing all this, you've decided to testify and that's your free and voluntary decision to do so.
If that's correct.
All right. I am going to find that it's a free and voluntary decision.
How has she gotten this far in life? I mean, she is slow.
To testify. Go ahead. What would you like me to know? And if you want to lay some foundation, which just means to tell me what each of these photographs represents, and then I'll ask Mr. Reynolds if he has any objection to the photographs.
Okay, first of all, I need to find out if a 5th photograph has been uploaded. I was having a lot of trouble getting a final picture of the driveway uploaded. And so there should be one of that sent. In addition, there are other pictures of the north side and the west side of the
That
house.
explains it.
And
I'm
I
just
also
gonna-
would like to look at Mr. Reynolds' final picture that was taken from private property onto my
That level of idiocy really does need some help and some formal training.
property to explain some discrepancies between what Mr. Cochran described and what I know to be there.
Okay, so let's first, let me tell you that I've looked through it right now. I haven't seen anything that shows the driveway or of any of your photographs that it's been uploaded yet. Fernanda, can you check and see if you have an email with a photograph of a driveway? And if so, can you upload that and label it as Exhibit E?
It is in the system already.
All right,
It
let me
should
just
be.
refresh my screen. I may not have refreshed it since we first. Yes, defendant's Exhibit E is now in my system. And that is a picture. It has Mr. Lau out front and a photograph of the Rhodes Scholars trailer on the
Right.
driveway. So
That's
that's
correct.
Exhibit E. What we can do, if you'd like, Ms. LeCompte, is we could just scroll through each one of those photographs. You could identify what it is, and we can have Fernanda do that. She will share her screen, and you'll be able to see that, and then you can testify as to what each exhibit is. So if that's workable for you, I'll have Exhibit A come up first. Does that work for you as a starting
That's fine.
point? All right,
That's
go
fine.
ahead, Fernanda, if you'll share your screen and post up Exhibit A. I think, there we go. So can you see that?
Yes,
Go ahead and tell me what Exhibit A represents.
this is the front of the property. It is looking to the front door from the approximately near the mailbox. And as you will see, everything that Mr. Reynolds described
Sure did.
as Mr. Cochran described as being household items and things like that on the front porch are gone.
So this is Exhibit
I-
A.
And this was work that we did this morning. I find it sort of odd that Mr. Cochran said he was there at 9 o'clock in the morning. We were out there all morning, except for an hour that I was missing. This photograph was taken at about 1:45. I'm sorry, about 12:45 this morning, this afternoon.
So right before coming to court today?
What?
Right before before our court appearance today?
That's correct.
All right, this is Exhibit A. Any objection to Exhibit A, Mr. Reynolds?
No objection.
All right, anything else that you'd like to say about Exhibit A?
Yes, I'd like to say that the large truck that is in the driveway,
That's not in an Exhibit A, but you could talk about it later if you want to get to that one when you get Exhibit E.
I would like to say that the materials that Mr. Cochran may have seen on the front porch were all things that were being moved into that trailer, that big truck, and will be moved away. So now I'd like to look at the next one. Next
Okay,
one.
Exhibit A has been admitted. We'll see Exhibit B. All right,
Okay,
can you see Exhibit B?
Yes.
Anything you'd like to share about that?
Now this is just another slightly further distance, a picture of most of the front yard. And what is there are just some chairs that we use and sit in frequently.
Okay, any objection to Exhibit B, Mr. Reynolds?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Exhibit B will be admitted. Anything else that you'd like to say about Exhibit B?
No,
Okay, let's move to Exhibit C. All right, go ahead when you're ready and would you see it and tell me what you'd like me to know about that one?
this is a picture of the north side, the trailer with metal on it that Mr. Cochran described has been removed, which was part of the plan for today. The wood pile that is up against the fence, we have a wood burning fireplace and we do use it. And that wood pile was moved, is there for us to use in our wood burning fireplace. The green pipe and things like that are that I had mentioned earlier, are the drain pipes that come out of my crawl space. And I don't have anything more to say about this one.
And did you say they actually come out of your crawl space? They're attached to something there?
A sump pump. I have 2 sump pumps in my crawl space because otherwise it would fill up with water.
Okay,
When where there's rain.
okay. Thank you for that. Anything else on Exhibit C?
No,
Mr. Reynolds, any objection to Exhibit C?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Exhibit C will be admitted. And we're looking at Exhibit D. Okay, go ahead and tell me what you see there.
This is a slightly different view from the corner of the intersection of Sioux and Pawnee, looking to the southeast.
Okay, anything that you'd like to say about Exhibit D?
No,
Mr. Reynolds, any objection to Exhibit D?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Exhibit D will be admitted. And then if we can pull up Exhibit E.
this is our driveway. You can see that most of the things that
There's our hero.
Mr. Cochran noticed and objected to, including the big juniper bush to the left of the photograph, where all of the things that were under and around the juniper bush have been removed. Most of the things in the driveway have been removed except a few objects at the very back of the trailer that are about to be loaded into that big trailer and taken away.
Yeah, he's got a
It
different
is
shirt.
simply that we did not have time to take it away before the court date. The driveway's been swept. The things that were alongside the edge of the north side of the driveway, there's nothing there but garden plants. There's
And,
nothing against the garage wall, and then behind the juniper bush and up against the carport, there is in fact an old refrigerator. We've called XL to have it be removed. There's a sign on it that says XL, please take, and it is to be removed by XL.
Okay. Oh,
And you might be able to see there's a
crossing.
white bicycle up on the other side of the trailer. That was left in our yard. There's a sign on it that says free. Take it. And
And
we
that's,
just.
that's on the other side of the trailer, is that what you're saying?
Yes, I think you can see it just beyond the telephone pole.
Okay, yes, thank you. Anything else you'd like to say about Exhibit E?
No,
Mr. Reynolds, any objection to Exhibit E?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Exhibit E will be admitted. So all 7 of the prosecutor's photographs have been admitted and all 5 of your photographs have been admitted. You said you wanted to have a comment about the prosecutor's Exhibit 7. Do you still want to do that? I could pull it up for you and have you comment about it if you'd
yes, I
like.
do.
All right, we'll have from Fernanda pull up the prosecutor's Exhibit 7.
Your Honor, I don't see Exhibit 7 on the
very
record on the file yet.
I think it's in there.
Challenging
He
it.
says it's at the very
Okay,
bottom, but
in
is
what
that
way?
correct? Because
In a good
it's at the
way.
top. You might need to refresh.
Or, I mean, I have it. It's like my.
Yeah.
You'll probably
Oh,
have to.
right here.
There you go.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay. All right, so here's prosecutor's Exhibit 7. And
Okay.
that's it. All right, go ahead, Ms. LeCompte. What would you like us to know about Exhibit 7?
I'd like you to look at the left side of the photograph, which is the south edge of my property. And you'll notice that there are not small bushes there. There are good sized lilac bushes that primarily obscure any sight of the backyard of my house from Pawnee. And there are also 2 large trees at the
We got
south end
lilac
of my
bushes.
property, just between
So
the
it's
house
cool.
and
Everything's fine.
the neighbor's fence, that also obscure any view from Pawnee Drive of my backyard. So I find it sort of difficult to believe that people walking on the sidewalk on Pawnee would be able to look into my backyard at all and see any of this. And I think
Okay.
you can see that the lilac bushes are probably about 5 or 6 feet tall.
All right, thank you for that.
I don't
Anything else
see
that
any
you'd like to say about
lilac
Exhibit
bushes.
7?
I
I'd
see
just
a pile
like
of
to
trash.
remind everyone that the privacy fence that runs along Sioux Drive is tall enough that no one can see into my side yard, my backyard.
Okay.
How about your crawl space?
All right, so that's some testimony regarding the exhibits. It's also certainly your opportunity now to present any testimony that you'd like me to have with respect to the work that's been done. You're not required to, but if you want to summarize what's been done, where things stand, you certainly have the right to do that as well as part of this hearing.
I'm sorry, it was a little garbled, Judge. At the beginning, you said I can talk about.
Anything else that you want me to consider, you can tell me. What I've seen so far is just photographs, and you've commented about what are the photographs. But if you'd like to testify as to where things are with respect to the work that's been done and what is being done, that type of thing. It's certainly in a hearing on compliance with a court order, the judge wants to hear what people's efforts were and where they stand and why there may or may not be things that aren't yet completed. So if you want to comment on that, you can. You're not required to, but I'm just giving you some context of what I'm looking for.
I think that the three things would be important to know. I have only now, you're familiar, Judge, I'm sure, with the surgeries that I've had that meant I couldn't lift anything. And it's only been in the last 4 or 5 days that I was cleared by the surgeon to lift anything. So I was able to help with some of the cleanup of the porch, but everything else has fallen on Mr. Lau, who, as you also may know, badly injured his right ankle and has not been able to walk very well for really since about mid February. So that has slowed us down. That said, we have rented storage space for items that were of value and have been taken away since our last hearing, and we have continued to do that. We have gotten storage boxes, and that is essentially that trailer that's on the driveway right now is loaded with things that will disappear by the end of today, with a few more items that need to get put in there. But Mr. Lau has not been able to load them, and I cannot load them myself in the time that we had to do that. So I am virtually certain that by tomorrow morning, or maybe tomorrow afternoon at the latest, that trailer will be gone, and so will everything else that's on the driveway. And in addition, I hope that I will call Excel and see if they will come and get that refrigerator that doesn't work. And they apparently have a service that will remove things like that. And then I think you will find that it will be completely in compliance. Because everything that Mr. Cochran identified as problematic is gone.
Yeah. Yeah, you're almost there. Just that, and you're
about
fine.
to be removed, and is either in or is right next to the back end of that big box that's on the driveway, and will be put in there and taken away.
Okay. Anything else that you'd like to testify to?
No.
It looks like Mr. Lau is trying to communicate with you, wondering whether he can testify. You have the right to call him as a witness if you'd like. It's up to you.
I'd like to call him as a witness.
All right, Mr. Lau, you can unmute your microphone and enable, oh, not yet. Mr. Reynolds is going to have a chance to cross-examine. You're going to get an opportunity, Mr. Lau. She wants to
It's
comment.
going to be horrible.
Mr. Reynolds, do you have questions for Ms. LeCompte?
Your Honor, and if it's okay with the court, and just remain seated so I can perhaps share my screen with.
Perfectly fine. You threw out there and you don't have to ask permission again, but I appreciate that.
Good afternoon, Ms. LeCompte.
I can't understand you. I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, Ms. LeCompte. Can you hear me better now?
Good afternoon.
I want to go through some of the pictures with you here that you submitted. I want to take a look at Exhibit A. that you submitted? Are you able to have that in front of you?
I don't have anything in front of me. I don't know what you're talking
You can
about.
share your screen if you choose to, Mr. Reynolds.
Yeah, I'm trying to, oh, there it is. My Zoom is minimized. Okay, a lot of apps. Okay. All right, Ms. LeCompte, can you see Exhibit A that you submitted there?
Yes,
On the right-hand side of the exhibit, there is the green juniper bush.
yep.
Did you submit any photographs that depict what's behind that bush?
I did not submit any photographs because the only two things that are there are two small freezers that we use as household food right now. In part
You got
because
a couple phrases behind the bush.
that big refrigerator, which we were using as a freezer, had
Perfectly
conked
reasonable,
out.
Judge.
So that is basically household food that is being used on a regular basis, but they're two small freezers.
Thank you. I want to draw your attention to Exhibit E. Share my screen. Exhibit E. Did you submit any pictures that depict what is on the other side of this large trailer?
No, I didn't, because there are, it's basically garden space until you get to the things that are stacked there behind the trailer. And those are actually going to go in the trailer and disappear.
So is it correct that currently right now there are objects that are behind the trailer you're planning on putting in the trailer?
I'm sorry, I can't understand you.
Is it?
Could you talk a little more slowly, because I can't understand you?
Is it accurate that there are some objects that are on the other side of the trailer that you're planning on putting in the trailer to remove from the property?
There are some objects that are at the back of sort of on sort of on the easement that are right behind the trailer there at the very back of it, and are ready to be loaded into that trailer. That's the back end, and it's open of the trailer.
And the green juniper bush, again, on the left-hand side of Exhibit E, is currently blocking the view of a large refrigerator. Isn't that accurate?
That is correct, and that is the one that I described earlier as having a sign on it to be taken away by Excel.
Yep, that's it, Uncle Dan.
It was working, it's not working anymore.
Then Exhibit D, showing you Exhibit D that you submitted. What is this large green object in the back corner of Exhibit D?
You said it looked like an umbrella. I don't know what that is. We've had some high winds and things have been continually blowing into my yard. So I will go and check and see what it is, but I don't know.
She can't even identify her own junk.
But you can see what I'm circling with my cursor right now, correct?
I see what you're circling with your cursor, and I don't know what it is.
You see how
It's
that's
not
bad?
firewood.
It's what?
But it is not firewood, correct?
No, it is not. The firewood is further back.
Oh yeah, it's just something
It
that blew
is
in.
stacked up along to the
Oh my God.
east of that, whatever it is that you were circling.
And the object that I'm circling.
It actually could be the lid to the entrance to my crawl space. It looks like a large box that has to be lifted up. I recently had my furnace serviced, and the people from Save Home Heat had to enter into the crawl space several times in order to lift that. in a box, and it's quite large to get into the crawl space. They were just here just a couple of days ago, Monday.
And then in the middle part of Exhibit D, what I'm circling right now with my cursor, there's a green and black, which would appear to be some tubing.
Yes,
What is that?
those are the hoses that are attached to the sump pump that drains my crawl space when we have heavy rains and keeps my crawl space from flooding.
How many times a year do you use your sump pump?
Anytime the water around here rises, which is very frequently, because there is essentially a creek that runs quite close to my house, but you can't see it because it's in culverts, and it actually comes out just to the north of the school, which is across the street from my house in that park area, and forms a marshy area. So it's a very high water table space that actually comes from the drainage of South Boulder Creek, which I happen to know quite a bit about because this whole area has been within a floodplain within the last 25, 30 years.
So do you use your sump pump every week?
I have no idea how often it goes on. I do hear it go on fairly frequently, but I don't sit there and listen for the sump pump because it's not very loud, fortunately. But if you're trying to tell me that I shouldn't have these pipes going out into my yard to take the water out, you will check around the other houses in this neighborhood. Almost all of them have pipes like that to evacuate water from their crawl spaces into the yards.
Thank you. I want to go back to Exhibit E. What is currently in this trailer?
I'm sorry?
What is currently in this trailer?
There are antiques from my mother that I inherited. There are tools, large tools and heavy equipment that Mr. Lau uses. There are boxes of books from my professional career that I'm going to get rid of. There are boxes of papers from my old research projects that need to be recycled. Things like that.
And how long do you anticipate this trailer being on your property for?
I've already mentioned to Judge Khan that the plan was to have this gone this morning. We ran into some difficulties of just plain loading it, but I would anticipate that this will be gone by tomorrow morning or maybe even this afternoon. It just depends upon how many of the objects that are still at the back, as you can see, Mr. Lau's capacity to load them into that big Road Scholar van. He's pretty tired. So but basically within 24 to 36 hours.
So basically never.
And
Understood.
that's the outside estimate.
And Ms. LeCompte, is there any truth to the idea that you and Mr. Lau clean the property up the morning of the hearing and take photos the morning of this hearing, and then shortly after a hearing like today, a bunch of the loose property would just come right back to your property?
There is no chance in hell that will happen.
What makes
Hey
you say
now.
that?
Calm
What makes
down.
me say that is because I don't like living like this. And many of the things that were in my garage that were a lifetime of my mother's, my father's, and all these other things that ended up in my house because I'm the only kid left in the family.
Yeah, no one cares.
Are now being removed, and they're not likely to come back again. The things that we're throwing away are not likely to come back again. I'm not a hoarder, and I am not likely to go want to fill up my yard with
You
stuff again.
Are a hoarder.
Nor will I
The capital H.
encourage anybody else to do the same thing.
So, Ms. LeCompte, you first stated when I asked you the question that there's no, and I'm just using your language, no chance in hell of that
I'm sorry.
happening.
I didn't,
Uh,
I apologize. I just can't understand you sometimes.
So, Ms. LeCompte, I asked you the question about whether or not the property's gonna come back, and you initially said there's no chance in hell that it's gonna come back. And then just a couple of sentences later, you said that it's not likely to come back. Those two things are not the same. So, is it, that it's not likely to come back?
Excuse me.
Yeah, is it not likely?
I said there is no chance in hell. And perhaps when I said it's not likely,
We have gone full Karen, officially. You can't get more Karen than this.
that was said with sarcasm. It's not likely, after having gone through all of this since last October and before then, that I would really ever want to enjoy such a process again. And so, no, there is no chance in hell that I will go through this again.
She is absolutely insufferable.
I don't have any other questions for Ms. LeCompte.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Give me a moment, Ms. LeCompte, because I may want to clarify. So I'm going to, Mr. Reynolds did a good job of going through these and clarifying his view, but I'm going to ask Fernanda to pull up Exhibit E again, and I may have a question about Exhibit E. And Fernanda, can you zoom in and move to the right? I just want to be able to see what's on the other side of the trailer to the extent possible. And that's good enough. Okay. So you testified, Ms. LeCompte, that there are some items behind the trailer, and there's the bike to the side of the trailer. There appears to be maybe a white dresser or something that's also just to the side there. Is that correct?
I am not sure what that is. It's on the property of the house. Oh, I see what you mean. That is another refrigerator with a sign that says free on it. It does work. Then to the right of that and right by Mr. Lau's shoulders are our trash cans.
And what's to the left, that if you're looking at the blue kind of mechanism there, that small standing white object, what is that?
That is the box for the power company.
Okay.
That's on the east. There are 3 or 4 of them, and
Okay,
they are all
that's
stacked
fine.
up. Okay.
I wasn't sure what that was, but thank you. That zooming in helps for me to see what it was. Okay, let's go back to Exhibit D. And I don't have any questions on Exhibit D. Let's go back to Exhibit C. And I don't have any questions on Exhibit C. Can we go back to Exhibit B? You mentioned that there's 2 chairs, I believe. Can you circle those, Fernanda, for?
Judge, they're between that stump and the tree.
Right. And are those chairs that you sit out? Is that what you said? You sit in those chairs?
Yeah, one of them is a sort of a black chair. The other one is a kind of classic lawn chair.
Okay, and what's this shaped, this item that's
Ooh la la,
right? Yeah, that
classy lawn
It's
chair.
a
Green
bird
circle.
bath.
A bird bath.
It is,
Okay.
it is.
I just want
a
to make
really
sure I
nice
know what
curtain
everything
cut
that's
there.
there. And then if we can go to, I believe the last exhibit, Exhibit A. We're working backwards here, but. You said there were two freezers, which I can barely see, that they appear to be the white objects behind the juniper bush.
That's what they are.
Anything else behind that juniper bush besides those two freezers?
Absolutely not.
Okay,
Well, there are a couple of decorative pots along the edge of the patio and a couple of rocks, decorative rocks that are right up against the patio. And then right
Decorative
next
rocks.
to the front door, there is a small,
Oh,
like Turkish leather chair on one side and a porch swing on the other side.
Corinthian leather.
Or a
okay,
little-
thank you.
A glider.
That's helpful for me to know. Porch swing and a
Crap,
leather
crap,
chair.
and more crap. Okay, okay.
My
I've got it all
purpose in
down.
asking these questions is I'm going to try to get very clear about what can stay and what can go or has to go. So,
There
okay,
is, behind that chair, there is a container of rock salt for sprinkling on the sidewalks when it gets icy. Those decorative pots will have flowers put in them as soon as the weather's warm enough.
okay. I'm going to look back at your testimony, see if there's anything else that I have any questions about, and then I'll give you a chance to call Mr. Lau to testify. You said that you're going to call Excel to remove the refrigerator. What if they don't?
Then we'll call a junk hauler or something and ask them to take it away.
Okay.
And if they don't do it soon enough, I mean, I'll check and see if we're on some sort of a list for pickup. And if they're not, I will move to just have them removed.
The trailer that is out there, the Road Scholar, is that itself going to be emptied by somebody into a unit, or is it going to a junkyard, or is it both?
No, it is going to a storage place down on Arapahoe that we have rented space for.
So the actual trailer is literally just going to go to that space.
It's actually going to go there and be left there so that I can go through my papers and stuff like that and get rid of them and things like that.
Okay.
Oh my God.
You said that in the last 4 to 5 days, you were just cleared to
Trashing
lift
another
anything.
space.
That's correct.
Do you have any continuing restrictions on what you can lift, aside from your physical ability, any continuing medical restrictions?
I am only allowed to pick up 5 pounds so that I actually have lifted 5 pounds with each hand, with both hands. If I use both hands and don't lift anything above my waist. And I'm going to be like that for another 3 months.
And then you mentioned the other person that's helping is Mr. Lau, and you said that he's had a badly injured ankle. So that's limited him, correct?
That is correct. I thought he had actually torn his Achilles tendon. It doesn't appear that that's the case, but it's still pretty painful and it's still healing.
You have any other assistance that you're
I have-
able to access?
Only if I hire people to do it.
So no relatives who
And
are
I
here
have
that
done,
can
and
help?
I've done that. Before the previous hearing, I hired a man, the husband of my housekeeper and her 3 teenage sons who came in and helped us to essentially to clean out some of the garage so that there would be more space to put things in. So we've rented trucks to move things. We have rented space to put things. We've hired help I've hired help to help Mr. Lau move things. I've had a girlfriend or two who've helped me move things.
Okay. Those are all the questions that I have. Any other testimony that you'd like to offer based on the questions that I have? And I'm going to ask Mr. Reynolds if he has any questions based on mine as well. But first you, Ms. LeCompte, anything else that you'd like to testify to based on the questions that I just asked?
I'd only like to attest to the fact that I really meant it when I said I don't want to go through this process again. And I am firmly committed to make sure that that what I've told you we're in the process of doing will happen very quickly, within the next 24, 36 hours, and that it's not going to happen again.
Too late, not enough.
Okay. Mr. Reynolds, any other questions based on those questions or the testimony from Ms. LeCompte?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. LeCompte, if you'd like, you can call Mr. Lau. I would just encourage you to keep it relatively short at this juncture unless there's new evidence being offered by Mr. Lau. I'm not really doubting the credibility of what I've heard from the officer or from you, so I don't need cumulative testimony about something that's already been testified to. But if you've got something else that you want from Mr. Lau, you can call him as a witness.
May I just ask him
Yes.
what he had planned to do?
Yes.
Okay.
Why don't you just step to the other side? Do that privately for a moment. Mute yourself and go ask him and then come back.
Behavior in this case is disgusting.
You'll need to unmute.
Okay, Mr. Lau sent two more pictures behind the juniper bush, if you would like to see those. And the only other thing that I would like to say, and this is echoing what Mr. Lau was going to respond to, is that particularly showing the pictures taken from the private property next to my house into my yard is moving goalposts and moving away from what Mr. Reynolds repeatedly said since October of last year, that what I was accountable for was anything that could be seen from the street into my property. And that's what I believe we've done. And it feels like that today he's moved the goalposts again. So I'm just saying that I feel that that's bringing up new material that I wasn't held accountable for in the original charges.
We don't care what you feel.
Okay. And
At
you
all.
said
I
Mr.
mean,
Lau
zero.
sent in, did he email those to Fernanda or Fernanda, do you have those?
I did. I just need to upload it in the system.
We're going to upload and we're going to mark those as defendants exhibits F and G.
Sounds good.
And as soon as they're up, we'll give you a chance to continue any testimony that you'd like to offer on those. If it's going to come from you, that's fine, Ms. LeCompte. If it's going to come from Mr. Lau, we'll need to swear him in.
Your Honor, just for your information, the email I received was from Mr. Lau.
That's fine.
Thank you.
We're just going to pause a moment while those get uploaded.
Okay.
I'm ready to share my screen, Your Honor.
All right, and we do have exhibits F and G. Defendant's Exhibit F, go ahead and pull that up. I'll just remind you, Ms. LeCompte, you're still under oath, and we'll take a look at Exhibit F. You can tell us what you believe it is, and then we'll see if it's if Mr. Reynolds has an objection to its admissibility. All right, there's Exhibit F.
This is the behind the juniper bush. There's the two small freezers, and you can see on the left towards the back is the glider and the leather chair, and what's in the back is my heat pump. But this is this area behind the juniper bush.
Okay, thank you. That's Exhibit F. Any objection to Exhibit F, Mr. Reynolds?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Exhibit F will be admitted. All right, and you've told me a little bit about it. I think the photo speaks volumes about what's back there. What else? Let's pull up Exhibit G. This is Exhibit G.
There was a lot, a pile. There were a lot of pieces of equipment and tools on this side of the juniper bush on the driveway, and they've been removed. You can see the little freezers in the back. I should point out that in the previous picture, there were two large bags up against the juniper bush, like big plastic bags. Those are lawn fertilizer that I'm planning to have spread by a yard guy on the lawn itself.
When is that planned?
That is planned starting, he's coming on the 10th.
All right, so this week, this Thursday.
That's right.
Okay. Any objection to Exhibit G, Mr. Reynolds?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Exhibits F and G have now been admitted. All right, Ms. LeCompte, anything else that you'd like to testify to? And I'll give Mr. Reynolds a chance to ask questions if he's got them.
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Mr. Reynolds, any other questions based on that
Very
last bit?
briefly, Ms. LeCompte, those freezers, are they plugged in?
Yes,
Are they designed to be outdoor appliances?
I honestly don't know. We've used them, but they've been outdoors. They haven't been problematic.
How long have you had them there for?
We've had them here for about 6 months.
So it would be accurate to say they have not been there in the summertime.
They have not been there, what?
In the summertime.
They have not, we have a similar one in our garage that has been there in the summertime. The garage gets hotter than it does out on the patio, and it hasn't been a problem.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay. All right. Any other evidence that you want to offer? And then we're going to give each side a chance to argue about compliance and not compliance. But any other evidence, facts that you want to testify to, Ms. LeCompte?
No.
Mr. Reynolds, any you want to submit before we get to argue? We get to argument.
No. No.
All right. Before you both start, I want to give you both a chance to kind of discuss where we are, but I want to remind everyone how we got here, and then I'm going to give you a chance to argue about compliance and non-compliance and whether I impose consequences and what I might impose. So we started with this case back in May of 2024. That's when the citation was issued. There were several motions to continue that were granted, some time, or at least one time when the case was continued on the court's own situation that arose here at the court. We ultimately ended up in October 8th. We have to mute Mr. Lau. I think he's inadvertently. October 8th was the day that there was a disposition reached. That was the day that you pled guilty to the charge of trash accumulation prohibited. And then I imposed the large fine, suspended all of the fine, imposed 80 hours of community service, suspended all of that. And then what the bottom line was in that order of suspending all the fines and costs in the community service was that by January 8th, all loose property around the house was to be removed. That was my summation of what I'd heard from the prosecutor and what was agreed to in the plea bargain form. And I want to just point out what was there in the plea offer that was submitted to the court that day as part of this agreement. That was an October 8th submission by the prosecutor. And it said, it basically made these recommendations. It said, the city recommends the following sentence: no new violations involving code violations at 290 Pawnee for 24 months. And then it talks about progress. And then it says, by month 3, all loose property surrounding the house will be completely removed. And so that's where we stood. And I've made that an order of the court that all loose property around the house was to be removed. I don't know that we discussed at that time whether that meant around the front of the house and the side of the house, or whether it included the backyard. So I'm going to allow Mr. Reynolds in his comments to address that, what he believes, but I don't know that we had a conversation in October about the backyard and what could be in the backyard. And so I want to be, from a due process perspective, as fair as I can possibly be with respect to this particular case. But it's clear that there couldn't be any other non-compliance for the 24-month period, and that the all loose property around the premises had to be removed. So that's where we were in October. In January, on January 8th was the date, but I think we had our hearing on January 16th. Unfortunately for me, I'm having too good a memory of actually even the dates of all of this. But on January 16th, you were here in front of me. And I said, I kept court fines, defendants failed to comply. I reinstated the fine. I imposed $500 fine, which you were to pay, and you did pay by January 17th. I imposed 16 hours of the 80 hours that I suspended, which you were to complete, and you did complete. And then we rescheduled this for a court date that was ultimately held on March 17th. I believe that was the next actual court date where we were back. And that's what I mentioned at the beginning of this hearing, where we were on March 17th. I found that you were not in compliance at that time. And I scheduled it for a review for today's date. And as I indicated, I imposed all of the fines, suspended all but $500 of the fine, imposed 64 hours of community service that was remaining on my original sentence, suspended 48 hours, meaning you had 16 hours that you would be required to do if you were not in compliance by today's date. And so that's where we stand. Mr. Reynolds, you have a few minutes if you'd like to make comments about all of that, and then I'll give you a chance as well, Mr. Comte.
Well, Your Honor, I've been going through the previous images of the property from other hearings. I think that the, public facing sides of the house are, at least as of this morning, the best that they have looked. We could get nitpicky about there still being some loose property surrounding the Sioux side and the Pawnee side. But it is looking better. And I do understand Ms. LeCompte's frustration about the back of the house. However, the plea bargain agreement in your order was clear about having loose property removed from around the house, that we did not specify from only, public facing sides. And based off of People's Exhibit 7 here today, I do believe the court would have the authority to find Ms. LeCompte not in compliance with the court's order, because there is clearly lots and lots of loose property on in the rear side of her house. What I would propose and recommend to the court is that we essentially schedule another one of these hearings, and that what I would be looking for would be that the public side facing of the house on Sioux and Pawnee in the driveway looks at least as good as it does in the pictures that we've seen today from Ms. LeCompte, that it doesn't look worse, and then that the backyard looks much, much better without imposing additional penalties today.
Ms. LeCompte, did you hear all that?
Not really. It was garbled.
Let me summarize what I heard.
Okay.
He said that the property is looking better, at least the public facing side, the part that you can see from the street and from the sidewalk along Sioux and Pawnee looks much better. There's still some things that are not fully in compliance. In his view, because of the way that the order was issued back in October, the backyard does constitute, there's loose property in the backyard. And since it said all loose property on all the property, that would be something that I could find you not in compliance. But his ultimate recommendation is that we reschedule a hearing again. And his expectation from his perspective, would be that the property that is public facing, that people can see on the side of Pawnee and on the side of Sioux Drive, that gets better than it is today. Certainly doesn't get worse. And that for my words, the trailer gets removed and the other items that are there get removed, but also that the property in the backyard gets better. That's his argument. I haven't rendered a ruling yet, but that's a summary of what I heard from Mr. Reynolds. Now it's your chance to make an argument.
Okay. Repeatedly in October and November, I talked in the breakout rooms with Mr. Reynolds to clarify exactly what was what I was accountable for. And he repeatedly said that things can't be visible from the street. Repeatedly said things cannot be visible from the street. I know that was not in your original order, Judge, because it was around the property. But I specifically wanted to know if the backyard, which is not visible from the street, would be included in that as well, because I knew that we were going to have some garage cleaning going on and things like that. So, and he repeatedly said visible from the street. And so that is why I'm somewhat frustrated with regard to the view from my neighbor's backyard being introduced this time into evidence as something that I'm held accountable for. There is nothing visible, or there won't be anything visible from that is considered a loose item, unless my bird bath is considered a loose item or things like that. Will not be, those will all be gone. And the same thing is true on the north side. And nothing from in my backyard is visible from the street. So I want my backyard back to look like a flower garden again. And I have plans to plant a vegetable garden, which I have done for many, many years, to do in my backyard. And so and Mr. Lau both are committed to do that, but I don't want to be held accountable for something that Mr. Reynolds clearly told me repeatedly wasn't in the order.
Yeah, he's not the judge.
That's I can only repeat that we're really going to try to do our very best to comply completely with what the October order was within the next, day or so.
Okay.
Remove
Mr. Reynolds,
the junk, dummy.
I don't
That's
like to be in the middle of plea negotiations because I'm not allowed to be in the middle of plea negotiations, but Ms. LeCompte made an argument that her impression was that my order only applied to things that were visible from the street. You may or may not even have a memory of what those plea negotiations were. It's difficult from where we sit today to address that view that Ms. LeCompte has, but if you'd like to offer your own position.
It would be my practice if I was going to accept a large portion of the property from my plea offer to have stated in the plea offer, all loose property visible to the street shall be removed from around the house. That was not included in the plea offer. It was there are no exceptions. And I can understand that because, code enforcement doesn't typically have access to where they had access to yesterday, that has not been the focus. However, the current state of the backyard gives me a lot of concerns about different types of code violations, and I would argue that that because the court ordered her to remove all of the loose property around the house without any sort of exceptions, that a reasonable person having that order would remove the loose property around the house and not create an exception that didn't exist in the order.
Okay, and I will note.
Okay, that's good. You came through. The answer is hell no. But just say that. Too many words. Too much messing around. I did not do that. That is not part of my plea offer. It would have been written. Done.
That on March 5th of 2025, there was a summons that was issued to you, Ms. LeCompte, for a new charge of accumulation of trash. So before I even deal with this, I just want to make sure that's trailing. That was scheduled for today's date to trail this hearing. But I want to point out what accumulation of trash ordinance says, because I think it may be helpful for everybody to understand what that ordinance permits and doesn't permit. So section 633 of the Boulder Revised Code states that no owner of any vacant land or property, occupant, owner, or manager of any single-family dwelling or similar property shall fail to prevent the accumulation of trash, recyclables, and compostables that are visible to the public on such property and on the public right-of-way adjacent to the property. Remove trash, recyclables, and compostables located on such property and on the public right-of-way adjacent to the property. Remove trash frequently enough so that it does not cause putrid odors on the property. And then I'm looking to see if there's anything else that might apply. But it appears to me that the very first provision, subsection A1 and A2, are the two that apply the most here, which is trash, recyclables, compostables that are visible to the public on such property and on the public right-of-way adjacent to the property. So that's what we're operating under. And there can be arguments on both sides about that. That charge has not been decided in one way or the other, the new charge. That was the original charge that you were operating under. And because of that, and because of this term visible to the public being part of 633, and that's what you pled guilty to, I'm not at this moment going to hold you in, find that you're not in compliance because of the property that is in the backyard. That may be subject to some discussion with respect to the new charge that is pending. All right, because in that case, the new case, the March 5th case that was a summons that was issued by Officer Cochran, the prosecutors may have an argument that this does not, that the state of your backyard does not comply. I don't recall when I was speaking to anybody on the record in October hearing about backyard. We were focused on the front yard in my view, in my memory. And so I'm not going to find that you're not in compliance because of what's shown in Exhibit 7 in connection with this case that is presently in front of me, case number 2250. The prosecutors may be able to prove that you've violated section 633 on the new charge. That will be separate.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
And if they do,
what?
Because I held that you had to be in compliance with all City of Boulder rules and regulations, that could result in me reinstating some of the fine on this case. But where we stand today, I'm going to make my decision based on what I've seen in People's Exhibits 1 through 6 and Defendants Exhibits A through G. I've now heard argument from both of you. It's clear to me that as of today's date, you're not fully in compliance. There are still items that are on your porch. There are items that are
Hallelujah.
on the north side of the property. Not a lot, but there are still a few little items
A lot.
that are on the north side of the property. And there are at least a few items that are behind that trailer that you have acknowledged need to be removed. And that there are items like the refrigerator that are visible. And then there's the items of the freezer, the two freezers that are in the court's view that are still loose items of property that are visible to the public. Now, they may not be as visible as other items because they're behind the juniper bush. But if someone walks by or someone's at an angle, they can clearly see that there's those two freezers. They can still see the refrigerator. They can still see that bike. They can see if they go to the north side of the property, they can still see as of this morning, they could see the trailer that's no longer there based on the fact that it got moved. But they can also see that green umbrella and some of those items. So there are still some items of property that are visible to the public from the right of way. And yet there has been some progress made just today because the time lapse from when Officer Cochran was there to the time when you took the photographs that were taken later in the morning at 12:45 and perhaps even later than that show that there's been some progress. And there's an indication from the defendant that more progress will be made. And I am somewhat empathetic to the fact that the defendant herself has not had the ability to lift anything and that Mr. Lau has had a badly injured ankle. And I haven't heard a lot of testimony about your economic resource, but you did fill out an application for public defender representation, which can be addressed in connection with the new case and any subsequent hearing. So I do have that. And so I think the most prudent thing to do is to give you just a little bit more time. It's really frustrating for me as a judge. I imagine it's frustrating for enforcement and for Mr. Reynolds to have to continue to monitor this. And I know you've said a few times you feel like the goalposts have been moved, but you also have to realize that you submitted some photographs at one of our hearings that from the angle of the photographs that were taken, it appeared that there was better compliance than there truly was. And so that I have a pretty good memory of what I saw. And so, and that was in on our January hearing. And so what I saw and what I was commenting on and saying, hey, this looks pretty good. I didn't zoom into those photographs and look behind them and see, oh my gosh, there's boxes, there's refrigerators, there's things of that nature. And even in today's, the first photographs that were submitted, they were submitted to show the side of the house, but they didn't zoom in onto the side of the trailer to show, and they didn't zoom into the behind the trailer to show me, oh yeah, there's still a lot of stuff behind here. And so you can understand why a judge who's supposed to be trying to get to the bottom of things might have some skepticism about what is being portrayed in photographs that are submitted. And it's not that I'm saying that you're disingenuous or you're dishonest. I'm just saying that what I saw in January wasn't what I saw in March and isn't what I'm seeing today. It looks a little better today, but clearly what I saw in March was not what I thought I was seeing in January, which was much better compliance from those pictures than was actually the case. And so for a court to be able to rely on the party, that's you, Ms. LeCompte, I have to feel like I'm being shown what is truly an accurate depiction of the area. And so to the extent that you feel like the goalposts have been moved by the prosecution, or that we were all saying you had done such a good job in January and now we're changing our perspective, you have to understand some of that was based on photographs that you submitted in January. Having said all that, I agree with Mr. Reynolds that rather than me imposing any consequence today, that I give you a chance to live up to what you said you're going to do, which is to get that trailer off the property, to move what's behind the trailer and what's to the side of the trailer into the trailer and get that off the property. I also want to point out some little things that should be removed from the property, so we're not back here discussing those. And if you look at exhibit, I believe it's exhibit C or exhibit D, but that's the photograph on the north side of the house. There's the green looking object that is probably an umbrella. That needs to be removed. I don't need you to remove the pipes that are connected to the sump pump. I understand how a sump pump works. I understand you need to have the piping. The fact that those pipes are green and black, it'd be nice if they blended, but they don't. So be it. Those are not loose items in the court's mind that need to be removed. But I don't want to come back here, whatever the next hearing is, and have a trailer sitting on that property with a whole bunch of loose metal objects, because that's exactly what the community and the community standard and this ordinance is expecting to not be on the property. I don't want to see the trailer that's in the driveway still on the property at the next hearing. I don't want to see the bicycle or the refrigerator or anything else that's a loose item that's behind that trailer still on the property. And you can expect that somebody from the city is going to go take photographs before that next hearing to show the court what it looks like from the prosecution's perspective. So you have to be thinking about what is it that they're going to present, and let me show what I want to present at that next hearing. With respect to the backyard, I'm going to leave this out of this case, 2250. And I'm going to leave it to the prosecutors to go ahead and move forward with what they think they can do as far as proving a violation in the backyard. We didn't, in my view, we did not address that initially with this case. It's not clear one way or the other, but in the way that the court looks at its own orders, is that I have to give some deference to what the expectation it was of the defendant. And in my view, the expectation was of the defendant, even from my own language in my order, was that we were talking about the front of the property. I didn't say that. I did just say all loose items on the property, but I'm clarifying that, and I'm clarifying that to your advantage on this case. I am not committing one way or the other as to whether the backyard, the loose property that's in the backyard that's described in Exhibit 7, whether that constitutes a violation of Section 633 going forward.
Are you kidding me? It's in your order that's been discussed today. The plain language of the order says you need to remove the items, does not specify a yard, does not specify visibility. I'm losing confidence here. We're getting beyond just, oh, I would take a different tact. Oh, and boy, I would. But you're really saying with the straight face that you're not sure about your prior ruling now. That's what you're saying. I mean, I know this is an ordinance case, but it's really making me nuts.
I'm not saying one way or the other. I want to give both sides the opportunity to argue what the meaning of prevent the accumulation of trash, recyclables, and compostables that are visible to the public on such property and on the public right-of-way adjacent to the property. That term, visible to the public on such property, that could mean the public, the next door neighbor who's looking out and seeing that, or somebody from another yard that's seeing that. And so I'm going to leave that to the parties to discuss if they want to try to reach a resolution on that case. And that could be the subject of some discussion as to the applicability of that ordinance to what's in your backyard. I'm not applying it as a violation of what we've got in place for case number 2250 today. So I'm going to reschedule our hearing on this.
Stop it.
And I'm going to trail the new case to that new hearing. So we're not going to take any action on that. And I'm also going to look today at your application for the public defender to determine whether you're eligible to have the public defender represent you any follow-up proceedings for this case and on that other case, because you did submit an indigency affidavit. And so I haven't looked at that yet. I am going to look at that now. Mr. Reynolds, you don't have to remain for that.
Judge, I did not fill that out because
Okay.
I felt I felt I'm not indigent.
Okay,
And I didn't, I am on a fixed income. I'm living on Social Security and some investments, and that's it. My tax,
Right.
you know what happened to property taxes and things like that. So I'm squeezed.
got it.
But I did not consider myself indigent. I would be ashamed to say that.
Okay. Well, you shouldn't be ashamed to say that you qualify for the public defender, but I do understand that if you don't think that you would qualify,
Sounds
then
like
you're not
Sean qualified.
applying for the public defender, and that's perfectly fine. And that doesn't mean that you're not struggling financially to deal with all of the things that you've got on your plate. That's different than being fully indigent and qualifying for the public defender. Let's find a date that we can schedule this hearing. My expectation would be that I want to give you schedule this hearing far enough out so that
Yep.
you and Mr. Reynolds can continue to have conversations about that backyard, because he may have a view that that constitutes a violation of the ordinance. I may end up believing and agreeing in that view. And it makes more sense for you to have the opportunity to come into compliance so that you're both on the same page than have a full-on trial and a hearing about that and have one of you be disappointed or the enforcement folks be disappointed on my interpretation of that. And the long-term goal, which I would think you would want to achieve as well, is to be in harmony with your neighbors. And part of being in harmony with your neighbors is complying with the rules that are adopted by the city council that apply to our residences.
That's great that you think that being in harmony with your neighbors matters, but clearly it doesn't. And also, it's not the law. It's a nice thing to think about, I suppose. But what the hell are we doing? I don't understand this.
And so to the extent that you can get into compliance such that you and your neighbors can repair whatever issues exist between you, and that you and enforcement can be on the same page, I want to give adequate time for that. But I also want to not make it so far out that we're delaying getting this all taken care of. And my history with this case is whatever hearing date comes up, it's usually a day or two before when everything starts happening. Maybe it was happening before, but everything happened this morning. A lot happened this morning. And my guess is that was prompted by the fact that, oh my gosh, we're going to go in front of the judge in about 4 hours. And where are we? Because that's what I seem to experience with the last case. It's a side issue, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands we got to be moving on this expeditiously. So when I'm looking at dates, I'm going to look out just 2 or 3 weeks out. And whether it's good news or not, what happened with respect to our conference, the New York conference with Center for Justice Innovation, that I had cleared out some docket space at the end of April that is now pretty wide open in those afternoons because of the fact that I was anticipating being in New York, which I am no longer going to be. And that's not good news for me because I was looking forward to that conference, but it's been canceled. So we could look at the 22nd, the 23rd, the
Nerdfest got canceled.
24th. We have one civil hearing on the 21st at 1:15.
There's 2 weeks from today, which is April 22nd. Same.
Judge, I have a question.
Yes.
I don't think we can okay, I have several questions. One is, I would really like to know what the specific issues, like, for example, is the wood pile at issue?
I'm glad you asked that. Let's talk about specifics.
Let's talk about it.
I mean, I would like to know each and
Yeah.
every item that needs to be removed from my north side and my front side.
Some of that I can do. Let's start right now. The bird bath is okay.
I'm sorry?
The bird bath is okay.
Oh, we love the bird bath.
The porch swing and the leather chair on your porch are okay. I'm not going to hold you say that you can't have a porch swing. And I'm not going to say that you can't have a chair on your porch.
What about the chairs under the tree in the front yard?
the two chairs that exist there right now, I don't understand why they can't be moved back to the front porch. Right now, I understand you're struggling physically till you can't lift them and Mr. Lau can't move them. So for you, and I assume you go out and like to sit out there so you can be at least have some sunshine. Is that what you're using it for?
All of our neighbors practically has some lawn yard chairs sitting out
Everybody's
in their
doing it, Judge.
yards.
Those
as
two
well.
chairs can stay.
Oh my God.
We'll
And
we
the
can get
porch swing and the
nicer
leather chair. The container of rock salt needs to be moved back enough so that it's not visible to the public. So,
It's not visible from the public now.
okay. And you're not going to need it much when it gets to be summer.
No,
Can't
then
we
we can
just
put it in
store
the
that in the
garage.
garage? Okay. And so, and then I've already said on the side of the house that faces north, the only thing that I'm looking at is that umbrella. The wood pile is very large. I don't consider it trash. So for the purposes of this case, however, what was there to the side of it, what Mr. Run, maybe we could, Fernanda, if you can put up exhibit D or C, I guess it was prosecutor's exhibit, might have been 1 or 2, but it's the one that has looks like some scrap 2x4s. That was exhibit 1. The 2x4s and the lumber that's on the side there. I don't know if it's been removed or not, but if we can get up exhibit 1, I'll point out what I'm talking about. So do you see where that umbrella is?
Yep,
And underneath that is some scrap wood that I see.
okay,
That needs to be removed.
okay.
I don't love the fact that your firewood is not in a pretty form, but I don't think it's trash and
Okay.
as defined by the code. Can we put up exhibit 2? So that's the only thing is the umbrella and that scrap wood. You got to get rid of that.
Okay,
Exhibit 2. I think it's just the piping that's back there. I don't love it, but it is connected to the sump pump.
well, these white metal pipes are not connected to the sump pump and they can disappear.
Thank you. And then the generator, that needs to be moved to the garage, somewhere where it's not visible, unless it's serving a purpose out there. You see
It's actually a pump, but that can be moved.
that's got to be moved.
Your Honor, I understand the court's position about the wood pile. But I just would point out that in Title 1, so 1.2-1, under definitions, the trash is defined. And trash includes yard clippings, wood, branches, twigs. I think that the reason why they might want to include that in the definition of trash is because a large pile of lumber could be a pest attractant.
Okay. I'm going to leave that for you to address in the new case. And I'm going to point out to you, Ms. LeCompte, the definition of trash. And I'm looking at Boulder Revised Code Section 121 has a definition section, and when you get to trash, it says means any solid or liquid waste, whether combustible or non-combustible. Trash includes without limitation garbage, rubbish, rubble, refuse, industrial waste products, brush, fence posts, crates, vehicle tires, vehicle bodies or parts, household items, organic material, animal or vegetable waste resulting from the preparation, cooking, and serving of food, paper, ashes, cardboard, cans, broken glass, cups, pieces of paper, plastic, yard clippings, wood, branches, twigs, glass, rags, and wearing apparel of any kind. I'm not going to hold you in non-compliance because of the fact that there is firewood on the side of your house, because I don't know that we called that out when I entered my sentence. However, you have a new charge, section 633, that you have not pled guilty to or not guilty to. And if you plead guilty to that charge, or if you're found guilty on that charge, it clearly includes the firewood that's on the side of your house. So I want to make sure that you understand that I am not exempting you from all time of having that wood considered trash. By definition, it's considered trash. Does that make sense to you? I don't know what to do about it, but
Well, I don't either. I would like to continue on days that you're allowed to have a fire in your fireplace, to have a fire in my fireplace.
so if you have wood that you're storing on your property, it can't be visible to the public. And that means you've got to find a place to put that wood.
Yeah,
If that means that you
originally-
build a shed and you get a permit from the city to build a shed where you keep your wood, I don't know how you go about doing that. But
We had it in the backyard before, and it was lower than the fence. And so the neighbors could not see it from their back patio, which is where Mr. Cochran took the photograph.
it is
So,
not going to be my job to say yay or nay to that right now. All I'm doing is reading you the ordinance so that you understand how enforcement views these things. And so what they consider to be a violation of the ordinance includes that wood. Okay? I'm just saying that in my order on this new case that you've already pled guilty to, I'm only going to hold you in contempt for failing to comply with what I've told you. All right?
okay,
But the new case could be a whole different approach. It could include the backyard, it could include that wood, and it could include other things. So what I just described for you, the generator, the metal parts in Exhibit 2, those need to go. Those loose hoses that are there, those black hoses that are in that picture, those don't look to be anything to do with sump pump. If they're still there, they need to go. And then if we can go to
the sump pump things have to go?
no, there's some loose black hoses. If you're looking at the picture, can you see the picture?
Oh, yes, I can see.
You see that black tubing that's there?
Yeah, that was an extension from the green hose.
You can't leave those out. So you're going to have to find a place to put those. If they're attached if you attach one of them to the sump pump, to that green sump pump hose, so that you can get it to the yard and it's not just flowing back along the side of your house, then I'm going to be okay with that. But laying in your yard as a place where you store them is not going to be okay with me.
Okay, there are 2 sump pumps there. Okay, so
Okay.
there will be 2 pipes, one for each sump pump.
Okay. Understood. Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay,
I live in South Boulder. I understand the wetlands issues, the creek issues, the sump pumps in houses. I understand. Let's go to the next.
I have another question that is actually a clarification that I need.
I'll give you a chance. Hang on to that question. Let's
Okay,
finish
sorry.
up this process of going through the exhibits because they're really helpful. Let's go to the, I think Exhibit 3 and 4 are fine.
That
Exhibit
help?
5, I think we're
Oh,
okay. The refrigerator I've made clear has to be moved. The side of the trailer, all the loose objects have to be removed on the side of the trailer. Obviously, that trailer can't be there. And then I want to hear from Mr. Reynolds about these two freezers. What's your position? I think they're loose property, but I want to get your position as well.
Your Honor, it'd be our position that, storing appliances that are meant to be indoors, outdoors is part of the problem
Yes.
here. And so, large appliances
It's
like
loose property.
refrigerators
Next.
should not be on the outside of the house.
And I agree with that. So I want to make it clear. The refrigerator has to be gone and the 2 freezers can't be outside. You've got to find another place for them. You just can't do that. And so those are loose, that is loose property. And then, of course, all those items that I think some of which have already been moved can't be on the property. All right. That's the court's view of what needs to be gone. I've given you some leeway on a couple of chairs, things that the porch stuff that you've got, and the items with respect to your sump pump. But otherwise, the loose items along the property have to be gone. What other clarification did you want from me, Ms. LeCompte?
I don't think that we will be able to, 2 weeks is not enough time for us to do the cleanup in the backyard
Okay,
They've had a
to the
year.
to satisfaction of Mr. Reynolds. I know that we can make some progress, but I want, again, extreme clarity to
let's do this.
let me
Let's
know
focus,
what I
let's
need to
focus on the front of the property for the next 2 weeks, and I want you to come back and talk to me about
Oh
the
my
front of
God.
the property. All right, and then to the extent you can make progress on the back of the property, go ahead and do so, but we're not going to resolve the other case at the next date. That's just going to keep trailing, and then we're going to address that case at some point with a not guilty plea set for trial, or with an agreement that you have with the prosecution, whatever it might be. That new charge that was issued on March 5th is going to trail to the next court date. We will not address what's going on in the backyard at that
Yes.
next court date.
I want,
Okay, so
That allow
I'm,
you
I
to
want the
focus on the
neighbors.
front of the property.
if somebody
Okay,
knows
I'm
one, have them,
confused.
I will have
So-
them on.
I'm clear about focusing on the front of the
I
property.
really will.
And, ASAP. But I don't know what steps, or you keep talking about the next court date, and I don't know what is going to happen there, what I have to do with regard to Mr. Reynolds and talking with him, and I'm just confused.
Yeah, so you got that new summons. Remember, you got the new ticket and it was issued on March 5th of
I thought
2000.
that actually was because of the existing problems with my front and side yard.
It may or may not be. I have not read the report. I do not know what the allegations are going to be based upon and what argument Mr. Reynolds might make if the case were to go to trial. All I know is there was a new summons that was issued on March 5th, which has not been subject of me making any orders. And you have not pled guilty to anything. I think the best way to address that case is to not do anything with it until we get some clarity on whether or not you're going to be in compliance on this new case. I mean, on the old case. So
Okay, that's fine, that's clear.
that case you can take up again when you come back. If you and Mr. Reynolds have ongoing conversations about it, you've been advised of your rights on that charge, so you
I
understand.
haven't, I've had no contact with Mr. Reynolds.
No,
about that case
you've been
at all.
advised by me. I've told you what the charge is. You've been advised that you're presumed innocent of that charge, and it's the prosecutor's burden to prove that new charge against you. That's a separate summons. As if this other one had never happened. That's a new charge from a new date. The allegation is that on March 5th, you were not in compliance with section 633 of the Boulder Revised Code. And so when you come back at the next court date, we're going to talk about non-compliance with my order. And if you and Mr. Reynolds want to talk about that new case at that point, you can. But if you're not ready to talk about that new case, I will give you a few more weeks on that case to address it with Mr. Reynolds. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay,
I would love for this to end, but the best way for it to end for you is to get it all in compliance.
Judge, I really felt that this March 5th case was part of the current case we're talking about.
It is not. It's
Okay.
part of your yard, but they may be making an allegation that the backyard constitutes a violation.
And that, I don't know what the charges are in the March 5th case. Do I
Same
find that out
charge.
later?
If you've been charged with accumulation of trash,
But
same
where?
charge, 633 on your property. Mr. Reynolds, can you share the police report with her?
Yes.
So he's going to email you the police report that Officer Cochran created that day.
Okay.
And that will lay out for you the information that he is relying upon to charge you with that violation of section 633.
Okay, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so you'll have that, and then you and Mr. Reynolds can have some follow-up conversations on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to continue this hearing over. Does March 22nd work for the prosecution about same time. Let me see what we've got on the 20th.
April 22nd.
I'm sorry, April
It does
22nd.
work at about the same time.
It does work.
It does work.
And let me just double check. I'm gonna have to probably run to my office to make sure I don't have a meeting or anything scheduled on the 22nd. I doubt it. But it looks like our docket's pretty clear. Does that work for you as well, Ms. LeCompte? If we were to do a 1:15 hearing on April 22nd?
Yes, it would.
I'll be right back. I'll go check my calendar.
Number one, know what I'm saying? Number one, know what I'm saying? We are the Law Talk with my crew. Number one, know what I'm saying? Number one, know what I'm saying? Number one, know what I'm saying? Number one,
All right. Alyssa, are you on here? Is there anything else we need to wait for? There's like another couple minutes. I'm ready to rant about this. But as soon as I turn it off, everyone will come on and say, "Oh, the best part was." Okay. Thank you, Alyssa. All right, so we have another hearing. What are we doing here? I'm losing my mind. I don't know why. I'm not really upset. I get cranky while I watch these things, and again, 30 seconds from now, I'm like, I don't care. But both her and Mr. Lau, I'm a nice guy. As you all know, I'm a very nice guy. I'm a very, very pleasant gentleman. I like to think the best of people. I really do. And I'm all for giving people breaks. And I kind of even started that way with Mr. Lau. But when people demonstrate absolute disrespect, and you can see what's going on, there's a time when you have to change your course of action. You cannot view these people as if they're dealing in good faith, because they are not. And it's making me insane that the judge keeps indulging this stuff. I don't know how else to put it. These decisions are within his discretion. He hasn't done anything wrong as a matter of law. I think he is an intelligent man. I think he is an intelligent man generally, but he has a blind spot. He's lacking some I don't know, social intelligence, perhaps. He's being played by two people who, A, are not very bright, and B, are transparently disrespectful and rude. And his approach to this, while he isn't breaking any laws or anything, I'm not saying that, but his approach to this is wrong. Simple as that. I'm guessing he's a nice guy, this judge. I've seen him, and I think he's trying too hard. He's trying to please people too much. It's not helping anybody. They are blatantly in violation. She's saying these things. We just watched this, see the pictures, and she's like, and I think it's all good as long as we get the trailer out of there. No, it's a horrible mess. It's not near compliance, and he's indulging that as if it's okay. She is downright nasty. I think Mr. Lau is as well, to be honest. I'm just calling it straight. I don't care. I don't have a personal vendetta. I don't know these people. They haven't, they're not my neighbors. I'm not dealing with it, but I'm observing this. But at least Mr. Lau puts a fake, polite face on it. So he's a little better at it. She is openly hostile. Just openly hostile. And he keeps pretending that that's not the case. Well, it is. And it's not helping her or anyone else to pretend otherwise. He did one thing that I think is really sort of really bad practice. I'll tell you, most judges would avoid this. He's giving prospective rulings. Let's go through here and think what I'll rule on these things. That's not how it is. That's bad for exactly the reason you saw. And there's a reason why judges don't do that. You don't start talking about, oh, I will rule this way, I will rule that. And then she talks him off his position. I think this probably should go. And then she says, well, what about the two chairs in front? And then she just says nothing at all compelling. And he says, okay, you can have the chairs in front. I mean, it's like someone getting run over by a little kid. It's like a doting mother who can't say no to a child. But that's not what we're doing here. This is a court of law. It's hard to watch. It is hard to watch. They need to just get hammered. And I don't mean this in a big way, but whatever these, we're talking about ordinance violations here. We're not handing out the death penalty here. But whatever it is, they're not in compliance. They're not interested in compliance. They're borderline contemptuous at all times. We don't give prospective rulings. We proceed with hearings, make determinations, and hit them with the fines, and stop cutting off the fines or reducing things or whatever. They haven't done anything to suggest they deserve that. Nothing. I'm a big fan of resolving issues amicably. That's everyone's first choice. But you can't do it if they're not participating, and they aren't. They are giving you the middle finger every appearance. They're making a clown out of you, Judge. You got to stop. All right, I'm better now. I think we have one more. But I don't think the case is anywhere near done. I just think we're within one. We're within one episode of being caught up to real time. But don't worry, we're still filming Hoarders, Colorado, in the form of new court appearances, because I don't think that they will get any of this resolved. I just don't. Although that was kind of funny. It was good. And then she's just sitting there like swearing. And I know it's like really mild, but just the attitude, the tone she took, like, no. I would have held her in contempt. I would have. She thinks she can talk like that in court. You're the one that hasn't been in compliance. And you're gonna bark at me? No, you're not. No, you're not. Let's go to hearing. Let's do this. I'm not talking about giving breaks or commuting sentences or whatever, reducing fines or any of this crap until I see an ounce of effort, and I'm not seeing any effort. And that's that. You gotta see what you're dealing with. You're dealing with completely disrespectful, non-compliant people, which is fine. So all you can do is proceed with what you have, and I wouldn't give any breaks in terms of fines or anything anyway. Although most of these things are statutorily set, so it's it's not a big deal. But they owe thousands of dollars, and that's that. Ultimately, I think what's going to happen here is all of this is certainly enough to trigger some sort of look at it. And I think eventually, I mean, this may be years or it may be next week, but I think eventually they're gonna go in there with the health department or something. They're gonna see something and think, okay, and the place is gonna get condemned. And then you can get a proper order and say, all right, you got to get out. The property's condemned. It's not safe. And honestly, I think that's how this case is going to end, because I don't see them ever complying. If they surprise me and start complying in the meantime, well, then great. We've solved the problem. Thanks for coming. It was fun.